Hello and welcome to the third and final Playdevil podcast for Gamescom 2013. I am your host Alex and I am here as I have been for all of the other two Gamescom podcasts, that is. Ian.
Hello.
You are still here, that's good.
Yeah.
As we make eye contact about a metre apart from each other, yes, he's still here.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
In body, if not in mind.
Yeah, I am feeling it today. I don't mind confessing. That was I feel tired.
Yeah, I'm pretty knackered.
I feel like I've abused myself in not unhuman ways, but just unpleasant ways that I didn't need to.
Yeah.
Junk food, living off a diet of coffee and Coke.
Total lack of vegetables.
Total lack of vegetables. And the vegetables we have had have been like smothered in unhealthiness.
Yeah.
And then games. Lots and lots and lots of games. And it was good.
Yes.
Games were good. Games are always good. But specifically, I think we saw... I don't know, I feel like today I saw... You know what, I'm not even sure. I don't know which day would have been better in terms of what I actually got my hands on.
I don't know, I think in terms of what I got my hands on today, probably still won because I got my hands on more stuff than I did yesterday.
Right, okay.
So I think today wins.
You think today wins? Okay, well, let's give a brief summary of what are we going to be talking about today. Because quickly, let's give an overview of what we're hitting today.
So we started off at Devolver, seeing a couple of different indie games, but we were mainly there to see Hotline Miami 2.
And I had to go on Foul Play, which was another one we'll get to. After that was, for me, 2K.
Well, we both saw WWE.
We did both see WWE, didn't we? Yes. And then I marched off to NBA 2K14.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, it gets really confusing.
And I went to see The Witcher 3.
Swine. Absolute swine. Because I wanted to see that, but yeah. Obviously, we need to cover everything. After that, I rolled off to see Konami and Pro Evolution Soccer 2014, I guess. And also Lords of Shadow. I got a look at that. Didn't get hands-on because of time constraints. And then I tottled on over to NIS of America. That's Nippon Ichi Software, where I got to try Dragon's Crown, and they gave me a copy. Woo. The Disgaea 2 remake, and another game whose name I've forgotten, but I'll write up a preview of that. It was a dungeon crawler. It was like something of Eternity. Cool. Looked like a nice little dungeon crawler, but it's going to be hard to convince me to part with full monies for it, maybe.
Nice.
They do their interesting things, though.
Yeah, so whilst you were doing that, I went to have an overview of the Xbox One dashboard and Kinect. Unfortunately, I didn't really see any of the Kinect stuff because they were running really late.
We'll get to that, so yeah.
And so I had to leave to go and see The Elder Scrolls Online.
Right, yeah. Is that where we met back up? I'm trying to keep up with...
No, so we met up back after that at EA.
EA, yeah, that's right. So back at EA, and that was FIFA...
Need for Speed.
Then we went and played Titanfall.
We did, yes.
Yes, we did. And then we both cycled back round to Activision, where you went and saw Destiny again.
Yeah.
I saw Skylanders, then you went off and saw Flight Simulator.
I saw War Thunder.
So let's wrap it all back around to the beginning and the morning, which is Hotline Miami and Foul Play. I'll do Foul Play quickly.
Okay.
It's Castle Crashers. Without the XP and leveling system, it seems, but a good little 2D combo focused brawler, side-scrolling brawler, set on a stage with people looking on, and you're basically playing through this character's life with his kind of sidekick as they brawl their way through various world events and stages. And it was a great little combo system, very easy to get your head around, really accessible, could be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Not doing anything especially new, but then again, that kind of game it has its niche, and I guess it's been a while since the last one, really.
Yeah, it's still an indie title, and it's definitely got some
charm, potential. Absolutely. But what we really went there for was
Hotline Miami 2.
I've got no mission. I've never played the original Hotline Miami.
I have played it very briefly.
Right.
But only very briefly. Which I think you could probably tell by...
Yeah, we weren't very good. It's true. It is true. Hotline Miami. Do you want to give us a brief overview, since you are probably more a favourite than me, let's say?
Okay. So it's a very stylised, top-down pixel art game, which is very bloody and quite spaced out, with a...
Spaced out?
Well...
Oh, spaced out as in far out?
Spaced out as in... Yeah.
Right, okay. Not as in gaps between things?
No.
Okay.
And basically, yeah, uber violent. You walk around with the arrow keys or sticks if you're playing on the Vita or PlayStation, and shoot everything. And you basically, it's one-hit kill on everything, including yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a really tough game, but it looks cool. Kind of looks influenced by Drive, although I'd get in trouble just by saying that.
Yeah, they weren't. They had a list of questions that we weren't allowed to ask, most of which would be the questions you would ask. But that's good, because I mean it saves them just saying no comment to everything all day, which is the kind of default with a lot of such things, right?
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. I mean, I kind of didn't pick it up originally because it came out on PC, and that was when the kind of buzz came around for it. Came to Vita, and I think I might like to try it on that. But then again, honestly, after playing this, I can see how it could really be very much a better with a mouse. But I've got it, I think, now, and it's now available for Mac, so I might give the original a shot, because it's a bit puzzly almost in the way you do it, despite the fact you're shooting and moving around it. There's a kind of a solution.
There is. For a game that's very hectic and fast-paced, it does require some advanced thought.
Yes, absolutely, especially because one of the weird things is you get these kind of like violent-looking masks, and when I put on, was it a tiger mask? Tony the Tiger, I think was the name of the mask.
Yeah.
And that only allowed your character to punch.
But punches were, I think, not all of them were, but I think they were all supposed to be one-hit kills. I don't know whether that was a...
They were all one-hit kills. They weren't if you opened a door, because you could knock people onto their feet, and once people were on the floor, that was when the couple of times you saw me, and maybe you as well, had it. But I got on it, I started to get the hang of it, I was really enjoying it, and I mean, we've got a video of it that will go up, and there are a couple of bits where I literally kicked the floor. I'm so angry with the fact that I just got crushed again.
It's always like the last one or two dudes on the floor as well that somehow get you.
Especially when you're like dealing with just your fists. It's like, how do I make this move to lure out this guy with a shotgun?
Yeah, and somehow for what's almost essentially, like we kind of allured to, almost a puzzle game.
Yeah.
In some ways, it does tend to play out quite differently every time.
Yes.
Some of the weapons that enemies have change, and it's very precise in terms of when a noise might alert them. So, you know, a pixel here or there can make all the difference as whether you've got one dude coming after you or 20.
And again, I guess, as the developers themselves said, and one of the questions you're not allowed to ask, why are you calling it a sequel when it's basically more of the same, was one of the things that they've written up on the wall that you weren't allowed to ask. With that in mind, I might go back and play the original. For now, as I haven't played it already.
It didn't look like it was bringing anything much to it, other than the fact it had a kind of
interesting storyline.
A new storyline, yeah, that's what I was about to say, that looked like it could be really super funny.
Yeah. And some great music.
Yeah, new music, yeah. I think it looked like as well potentially a bit more visual variety from just the two levels in the demo.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, but you know, gameplay is gameplay with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, on to 2K, WrestleMania. WWE 2014, I'm guessing.
30 years of WrestleMania.
30 years of WrestleMania, yeah. Going right the way back to Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant with that first one. But this year it's Ultimate Warrior who's become the big draw. He's like the DLC bonus.
Yeah, it's a pre-order bonus. And
it looks alright.
Yeah, it's still Ukes making those games. They've just taken on the developer from THQ.
Yeah. It's very. I thought they looked very plasticky. I mean, I think of the Fight Night games, which give these incredibly realistic looking characters, and like you're all zoomed in. And this does look like two action figures.
I think it's too much potentially to expect a great deal from them this year. Effectively, most of the time, I imagine, will have been spent integrating the 2K online systems and kind of front end, and all the problems with that franchise being potentially left in limbo and lawsuits with and the license. So, I think what you'll get here is a decent bit of history stuck on top of last year's game, with hopefully some better online, because those games have had pretty bad online the last couple of years.
The WrestleManias going through the 30 years, and they seem to have a lot of videos to back it up, to like explain the rivalries, explain the storylines behind some of the big matches. If you're a wrestling fan, it seems like it could be a nice little like Legends of kind of situation. Like you said, they're advancing much. They still seem unable to answer questions, but isn't that always the way? I don't know why they bother asking if there's any questions, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I think clearly, this one's not coming out on the new platforms. I think this is a last/first stab at it from a 2K perspective. It's the last of the generation.
Right, okay, yeah.
First stab from them, but putting their kind of clout behind it, their online systems and everything. But also a last stab from Ukes, and if they probably don't do a good job, they'll get replaced for next year. But let's face it, they'll have to come out with a new engine.
Make it, yeah.
Well, no, they'll have to come up with a new studio, but they'll need a new engine next year, and it's probably not that surprising they've not put a huge amount of effort into that side of it.
That's true. And to be fair, I haven't. The last wrestling game that I bought was the Superstars, which was they looked like action figures there, and
yes, that was the slightly more cartoony one. I think I had that one as well.
That was good fun, but not very big on content. And this one at least seems to have addressed that. And yeah, could be worth a shot. Going to do what I did next because you have something more interesting.
Yeah,
I want to play NBA 2K
because you are a baller.
I am a baller. I did all right. I got better at it as the game went on.
Oh, you actually got to play it?
Yeah. It was
because last year I just had a talk.
Oh, I didn't have a talk.
Okay,
I missed a talk. It was very. I think there are a lot of systems there that. There are a lot of games where there's a lot visible. There's a lot of HUD elements that kind of explain things in sports games, and they really have gone a long way of removing that and making it a case of. It's all in the characters, like. The free throw, which was driving me mental, never got close. There is timing involved, but you've got to know what that timing is, and there was very little to explain it. So you did kind of sit there thinking, I don't know what this is, until somebody came over and explained it. Right. And that's great if you're into it, it's just really bad for a demo. But yeah, I haven't played the games for so long that it is hard to comment yet again. Seems like a bit of a cop-out, in honesty. But looked like basketball, felt like basketball, and certainly a very pretty game.
Yeah,
it does.
Nice.
And the new right analog stick controls, I like to do trick dribbles, and shoot. All seem to work.
Okay, great.
You saw The Witch.
I saw The Witch, yeah. Which was cool. I guess the one slightly disappointing thing it was just the E3 press briefing again, basically. Yeah. So the slightly bizarre thing is it's not kind of the entirety. I don't think of that has been posted. It's obviously no filming during this, so I can only give my own impressions on what other people have already been seeing for the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Although, that is of no help to our listeners out there who are yet to see any of it, potentially.
Absolutely.
It looks like a seriously cool game. If you played The Witcher 2 in particular, that moved the game from being a pretty awesome first try at an RPG that brought in some really interesting story elements to a game that was genuinely fantastic in its own right, the second one. This one basically then adds in, it's like someone just dumped Skyrim on top of The Witcher 2.
And it's a big thing, because Witcher 2 was very segmented, actually. You went from area to area.
You had very big areas, but it wasn't open world, and it was done in an act basis, and you can really go back after you've done an act. And in some ways, you never got to experience the whole game, because some areas would be completely blocked off based on your choices. So,
which is great, actually.
Yeah.
But
so the in terms of to give you a perspective of scale here, the main island, so you're on a collection of islands, and it's Skyrim in more ways than one, because it is kind of the northern parts of the Witcher's world, so it does have a kind of certain Norse inspiration to it. Although it does definitely look different to Skyrim.
Yeah, I always wonder if that's a kind of resource thing, because white on white is a lot easier to fudge details.
Well, actually, there wasn't really a huge amount of snow. It looked stunning as well. The main island is bigger than the entire landmass of The Witcher 2.
Okay.
And there are a collection of islands and a load of sea, and the overall map is 35 times bigger than what's in The Witcher 2.
That is a big undertaking for what is not a massive team, as my understanding goes.
No. I mean, I think quite a bit of that is sea, but at the same time,
right,
you can take a boat, Wind Waker style, and go around, and again, like Wind Waker, there's encounters to be had and good reasons to go sailing. There was a particularly impressive bit when they changed the weather and it started to cloud over and a storm brewed up, and it affected the motion of the sea and the ease of sailing.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, it's they seem to be doing a lot.
Yeah, so you've not only got an open world, but the weather genuinely changes the gameplay. And apparently, they didn't really show anything. Apparently, they're looking to, even on foot, have the same kind of thing. If you're up the top of a mountain and it's blowing, make it more difficult to do kind of attacks.
Okay, that's taking on a lot. I mean, I played the second one, not all the way through, but a good chunk of it. And I really enjoyed it, and the combat was obviously they've done a really good job with the combat in that, which was, it's very much an action RPG. It's actually a fairly good hack and slash.
Yeah, they said they're still working on the combat, and to me that was the kind of one area that didn't look like it received a huge amount of attention at the minute.
I know they've changed it, because they've just released that patch for Witcher 2 to make update the combat to the Witcher 3 style. It gives more XP for that, and I think one of the other changes they're making is that you no longer get XP for combat.
Yeah.
It's moving to missions, is that right? You have to complete missions to get kind of your XP, and then I think that allows them to control like the ramp through the game.
Yeah. Rather
than allowing people to grind and then ruin the game for themselves.
Yes. And on top of that, what was also seemingly incredibly ambitious is that a lot of The Witcher, in terms of the story, has always been about the choices you make, which I think we kind of mentioned a little bit before. Some of that stuff sounds even wilder than the previous games, and obviously when you've got relatively set areas, that's quite a lot easier to do than in an open world perspective. So we had an hour-long demo that was played for us, and we only saw one outcome, but they kind of showed us kind of through their own talking bit cutscene other kind of potential options, and basically it was a side quest. You talk to the villagers. There's a group of elders, and also a kind of some of the younger, arrogant kind of village members, and you decide which one you're going to side with. You go out, you kill a forest beast, show them the evidence, and based on who you've sided with and some of the other bits and bobs you've done on this quest, sorry, I'm trying to go over this quite quickly, what happens to that village next over the next few weeks completely changes. So it can literally go to the point where you think you help them out, but actually the entire village is wiped out after a few months as a result, because there's no need for any warriors to stay there anymore, and then it gets attacked by the guys who are trying to chase after, and then if you come back a few weeks later, the entire thing would basically just be a deserted, burnt out wreck.
That is brilliant. I mean, that they're making choices. The idea that there are hard choices to be made out there, and sometimes the less than friendly option is the better choice for life, is not something you see often in games. I can't think of a game that does it quite as, I'm going to say clean cut, but demonstrates it quite that well.
Yeah, and the potential for this project is immense. They're going for a main story which will be 50 hours. They're blending in, and they show that a lot of side quests will come out of main quests, and they're trying to always keep at least one point of interest or quest on screen at any one point, so you never feel like you've got to trudge across the map to get anywhere, or if you do, you'll end up naturally finding a lot of other things on the way, and potentially getting into a lot of other trouble. And also trying to make side quests more enticing by the fact that, again, they will help sculpt the world around you. So they reckon there would be a minimum of 100 hours worth of content.
That's great.
Yeah. And on top of that, they're making a board game as well.
Okay. Doesn't surprise me. I feel like The Witcher was a board game first in my head. I know it was a book.
But yeah. A jigsaw, which they gave me.
Brilliant.
And also, I asked at that point whether they were just going to go all out and make a role-playing game as well, as in a pen and paper one. To which they kind of coughed and said, "We've not got anything to announce at the minute," which I always take to mean yes.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, that'll be. That would work as a role-play game, really. It all being revolving around one person. Unless you're a gang of witches before.
Yeah. Then you just go and gank up everyone around you. So.
Well, but it would be in an earlier era, wouldn't it? So it would be a D&D. Lots of witches and monsters in the world, and that's what you go around seeing off. Before The Witcher. When The Witcher meant you go around killing witches as opposed to go around sleeping.
Yeah. So, big preview of that coming up. We also had an interview with one of the producers as well. So, unfortunately, we were going to try and film that, but they ran out of spaces, so that was conducted on the floor outside the booth. So that's
not good for our camera.
No. So that's a text interview, unfortunately, so that'll go up.
There will be a microphone soon on that camera. It's... Unfortunately, making do at the moment, so apologies for any of the poor sound.
I think being outside anyway, it would have been difficult to...
Well, with a good mic, you'd have got around it. What was next? That's me then, isn't it? It's...
Back on to you, unless you want me to talk about the Xbox dashboard.
I do. Is it good?
Kind of looks a bit like the
current one.
And also there's... not that I can really talk about it, but I'm in on the beta of the new one.
Right. Does it look like that?
It looks a bit like that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. It's faster. There's now kind of apps for friends, and they showed us some of the features like being able to follow people as opposed to friend them.
Okay. Stalking
them, yeah. But there's no. I mean, they also showed off the privacy settings, so you can just effectively turn that feature off if you don't want anyone to stalk you.
That's good. You need that in life as well, really, don't you?
Yeah. So, it is clearly an iteration on where they've got to currently, but I didn't see anything that was necessarily an iteration kind of backwards. It responded well, it was fast. Unfortunately, I had to leave because they were running very late, so I didn't really see any of the Kinect integration. But it all was running on a proper retail kit, or near final retail kit. They kept on saying.
Well, yeah, I saw a PlayStation at one point, just in a PlayStation 4, just in a PlayStation 4 box, knocking around in one booth. I was like, wow, these things really exist now. This isn't. It's not all dev kits and
I think
duct tape.
No, I think with Microsoft, the reason why they were saying near final is because I think if you nicked one, you'd probably found these ones that were made a couple of months ago before they realised they could add in that extra 6% or whatever it was to the graphics chip.
Yeah, and before they started disconnecting Kinect features.
That's all software as well, and also actually what was interesting is they spent a lot of time, which is in essence a bit of a waste of my time because let's face it, it was a black box and I wasn't seeing the inside of it, telling me that this was basically final hardware, and then also saying we've got a long way potentially still to go with the software, and it might actually look completely different.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm glad they took your time for that.
Chances are it won't, and it was interesting to see it because actually Sony have been much more coy about that, for good or ill.
Yeah, absolutely. They have been. But I think they've got a lot more chances to improve over what they've got. But that's kind of faint praise.
They do, but I mean, I feel also that generally they have lagged behind a little bit this generation. They've really improved the speed and stuff, and the Xbox 360 one has got, especially if you've got a Kinect and a lot of stuff stored on there, horribly slow.
Progressively slower, certainly, as generation's gone on. Hopping over to Konami, where it was another one of those, we haven't got you down on the list, but you can come in if you like. It's like, down on the list, don't even. So I was meant to go and see Pairs, Pro Evolution Soccer, that is.
Was it a Pro Evolution Shocker?
Was a Pro Evolution Shocker indeed. Castlevania was shown at an unannounced game.
Tell me about the unannounced game, I'm excited.
They didn't know what I was talking about.
Right, so they didn't announce any new games?
They didn't announce a game. I'm going to start doing that. I'm just going to start, buy a booth at Gamescom and just say I'm going to be announcing an unannounced game. It's like, I changed my mind. No one announced no games.
Wow, alright.
So that was a bit weird. A little bit awkward socially, especially after the guy decided to chastise me for not knowing what was it? Close, I think I said. I was like, and he's like, come on, call yourself a game. It's Castlevania Lords of Shadow. And it was only after the fact that I was like, one, it's a small O, if that's the equation. Two, certainly you need a hyphen or something between the C and the Lords of Shadow. And three, it's been Castlevania since I was 6. Yeah. You don't go acronyming that shit when I'm 33. So yeah, I wanted to get a bit angry at him at some point. But
how was Castlevania Lords of Shadow?
It looked really pretty. It looked really pretty. I mean, it looks the same.
How was the frame rate? Because the frame rate wasn't great.
It looked pretty smooth.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
right, nice.
It's a bit interesting. They seem to take a slightly Devil May Cry kind of thing, where he has, I think, 3 different weapons that he just appear on his hands.
Right.
And I don't know if there's an abilities in there or if it's they're going to rip them off you. But certainly in the demo, he was kind of doing this red blood whip that kind of appeared from his hands.
Yeah.
Then he had the Void Sword, which apparently sucked things from enemies that just kind of appeared when he held out his hand.
Could he call Zoback?
No. At least not I know of. Again, I was watching somebody else play this. And 2 gauntlets. And then he was fighting this massive golem and this dude, who I suspect was a king, dressed as a golden angel with 2 swords.
Right.
And then fodder. It still has that gothic look. It's beautiful red, ornate architecture. And now it's all, you are Dracula. Use the bad man in everything they've seen.
Is it modern though? Because
no, I know, it's not.
Right.
Which was, I think that is where it comes to after this one. But yeah, the promise of the original was ending, which was that it was going to be in New York.
Yeah.
It was,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so 2 questions for you.
Yes.
When's it coming out?
Good question.
Because they've not really done that much more.
I had nobody talk. Nobody was talking to me about it. Yeah. I had no one. It was a hands-on with somebody else playing it, and I had to leave halfway through.
I think it's next year.
Right.
And I will look that up right now.
What's the other question? Stop making me look like an idiot.
The other question is, which you probably therefore won't be able to answer, is it coming out on the new consoles as well? Because let's face it, it's not coming out for the S2.
Again, I didn't have anyone to talk to. I was sat in front of a demo for that. Same with Pro Evolution Soccer. No information like that. Which is kind of one of those weird places you can find yourself in, because unlike on the show floor, where they're advertising it for different reasons, they're expecting to have somebody to talk to behind the scenes, and when that doesn't happen, because they don't expect you to be there, it's a bit awkward.
Right, I will tell you when it's coming out.
Okay.
It's coming out on February the 28th.
Okay.
in the UK, and somehow 27th in the rest of Europe.
Okay.
On Xbox 360 and PS3.
Cool. That sounds about right.
That means I probably won't be playing it.
Fair enough. Bad luck.
Oh well.
I will. Other game. Pro Evolution Soccer.
So before 2 minutes ago you said Pro Evolution Shocker.
It is Pro Evolution Soccer. I mean, it's the same game. It's a football game.
Right.
As it dawned on me not 20 minutes later when we were playing FIFA, it's pretty much the same as FIFA.
Yeah.
It's missing the teams, which I never really cared about until I went to look for a team, and it was like all slightly twisted versions of them to get around some stuff. I'm like, okay, that does feel a bit weird now.
Yeah.
And some of the textures, bear in mind this probably isn't the final build. And when I say the textures and things are bad, I'm talking about like off-pitch stuff. So there's every chance they could improve it, but it just didn't look crisp. And again, I was playing this on a PS3. And when we played FIFA, it was a PS4.
Well, Xbox One, technically, but...
Was it? Yeah, okay, Xbox
but,
One.
Same
So
story.
So it might be an unfair comparison.
Probably.
And maybe it really does take a day of playing on the newer systems to start thinking the other stuff looks old. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens when I head back. But it was... I think at this point it's hard. And I used to be a Pro Evo guy. I think it's hard to pick it over FIFA at this point.
Okay.
And that's coming from somebody who's only dabbled in both. And you see are dabbling on FIFA because we're putting that online.
And that will show you how good we are at FIFA.
Yeah, we are pretty amazing at FIFA. Then I went to NIS America. Of America. It was an interesting one. Playing Disgaea 2, or seeing Disgaea 2, was in HD. Was, okay.
Yeah, because that was a PS2 game, right?
Yeah, it's Disgaea. It'll be nice to see it all redone.
Yeah.
The HD things look great, but did it really need it? I mean, it's still in this weird place where when you rotate the camera, you can do like the 4 isometric views.
Yeah.
Just kind of spin it around. Your character kind of lags behind it, then snaps. Because while the world is 3D, your guys are sprites. Yeah. So it's just kind of like, this is all looks a bit dated when in HD. So it's like, is this one of those things that...
Well, I don't know. I mean,
they've added a bit.
That's kind of what Disgaea 3 was, though, effectively, because it didn't really change anything other than the fact that was an HD version.
Yeah, but they had to make that. They had a story to write.
Yeah.
This is the same game again. And they really have just made it HD. They have added a few things, actually. There's like some new shops. So there's somebody that sells cheats that allows you to balance things differently.
Okay.
And a new kind of training system, a dojo. So there are differences in there. I just feel like they've HD'd it just because they could.
Because they could, yeah.
And they pushed it out to make money. Which it was a great game, but the real cost in that is in making the story and then bringing it over in the translation. And I feel like they've already got over most of those two hurdles.
Yeah.
So it's a bit weird.
Fair
enough. I can't remember. Hang on, it's in my bag.
Devils.
No, not that one. The other game.
Alright.
Give me a second. I've got the demo disc here.
Fortunately, I've got no lift music to pipe over.
The Guided Fate Paradox.
Wow.
Which was good, actually. I mean, it looked very much Disgaea, a bit more, even more turn-based. I mean, it really was one block at a time, and you could be running around all kinds of weird environments. You could do like a cube. The items you wore actually changed your look in the world. It had an interesting story. You're this like high school kid who's complaining about his life, how he's the unluckiest guy in the world. He buys a lottery ticket, wins, and is given the gift of becoming a god. An angel comes down and hits you on the head with a mallet, and when you wake up, you've got all these angels telling you how you're going to be the new kind of messiah.
Okay.
But after that, it's a bit of a roguelike. You have to fight your way through 10 dungeons at a time, otherwise you lose everything. And it's like, it is what it is, and people like that kind of tactics game will enjoy it, I'm sure. Could be a hard sell. outside of people who are already going to be buying it anyway, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Looks beautiful art, beautiful character art, but same kind of problems as Disgaea. Nice big sprites, but just...
and at this point, kind of pretty much totally incomprehensible. And
no more than any other Japanese fiction.
well, sorry, yeah, I guess what I was getting is totally comprehensible if you're not already into that kind of thing. At this point, it's difficult to break into that genre.
It is. Well, not just that genre, that whole kind of culture.
Yeah.
Almost. The other game I played, which has got a bit of a buzz about it.
Yeah.
It's Dragon's Crown. Got a bit of buzz because of all these kind of like hyper-realised characters, from the witch with the big boobies to the dwarf with the abs that look like granite, to the Amazon with buttocks that you could put a shelf on, to the knight with the massive armour. I mean, it does hit up. And I'm not going to say in its defence, it's a stylistic choice. It's all over the top. Yeah, those witches' boobs are a bit meh.
Yeah, it's a bit worrying. Serious back pain.
Yeah, it would be serious back pain, but she's a witch. Maybe she's like, ding. Just levitates them. It would explain a lot about the fact of how her outfit stays on. But if you're going to say it, I mean, if you're going to sit there and say it's sexist, I'm not sure you can. I think there's impossible comprehensions of beauty for men also.
Yeah.
I think what you're actually looking at, the problem there is society putting more of an emphasis on women to try and look beautiful, whereas if men had that same pressure, we'd all probably be like, well, there's no way I'm going to get my abs like that when you look at the dwarf.
Yeah.
But where you do run into problems in that is that you're
far more likely
it's
to have
impractical.
Or you're also far more likely to have a pervy dude run
far
out
more likely
to
to
buy
have a
that.
dude, and you are, if you were really going out and fighting things, it's far less likely that you'd have that kind of build, whereas the kind of ripped build does make some sense.
Yeah. I think my main problem with that game, and the art style is questionable, is probably the fact that it's kind of, they're trying to sell it on a disc and it's kind of expensive for what it is.
It looks massive. I mean, the game looks massive. It's beautiful 2D sprites. It's been in development for like 20 years. That's 12 years. Sorry. It was going to be a Saturn game. They've got a lot of the character art goes right the way back to the Saturn era.
Yeah.
And I would, I think it looks great. I'm really excited to play it. But it is a hack and slash with an RPG system, and that's something that I'm interested in, but I can see why it might.
Yeah, I just kind of feel in today's world, when you get a game that looks like that, I know sprites, the art, character models aside, very, very nice. It seems like it, as I said, very deep, but at the same time, you look at that and go, how much more does this offer me than, say, Castle Crashers?
I think quite a lot.
Yeah, I think you're right, but is it 3 or 4 times the amount? Because that's kind of price-wise what we're talking about.
You're going up in a weird place, because we are putting a lot of that emphasis on it.
Yeah.
On everything, actually, because, there are good 3D shooters that you can buy, like the latest Call of Juarez that was just downloadable, and there's a couple of just downloadable games that never take off because they're not Call of Duty, they're not a big box game, right?
True.
And in fact, to make the sprites probably takes more effort than to do polygons. So it's
perceptions, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think the perception is wrong in this. I mean, I think you can say if you're looking at the cost of making it, I don't think I'm sure it was cheap because it was a smaller team, but the actual effort of making a game like this is quite immense.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with any of you. I just think it potentially this would be a kind of decent inroad to some of that culture for some people, but I just think the price will be off-putting for too many people.
Yeah. I hope. Well, I think it's one of those ones again where the price is based on we think we can sell this many copies at this price to make our money back, and that is undoubtedly the kind of direction they're coming at it from. So, as a fan of this kind of Japanese niche game, just have to get used to what used to be called the Square Enix tax. which is you pay through the nose for the translation and stuff when you shouldn't really have to. But there it is.
Yeah.
You have to, if you want games like this to be made, if you want niche games like this to be made, you have to put your money where your mouth is to a point, because if they were to sell it at half the price, I doubt they would sell twice the copies.
It's got quite a lot of buzz, but I think you're probably right.
Yeah. So,
Elder Scrolls.
Elder Scrolls, yes.
So, you may recall, if you've been listening to our podcasts in sequence,
Yes.
that we were wondering in a bemused fashion about what the subscription model was going to be.
Yes.
I know.
Or what the pricing model was going to be.
Sorry, yeah, that's a better way of putting it. Well, I've given the game away. There's a subscription model.
Yay! I like paying for things.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm holding up three games that I was given today and saying I don't like paying for things at Ian, in case you're wondering why I burst out laughing then.
And I've now gone from being super excited about that game to super worried about that game.
Right, I've been watching the demo, like the cinematic demo, and I'm like, well, that looks pretty. And I was in a shop, and there were people looking at it going like, what's that game? It looks really good. And I'm worried that they're taking in people who are fans of Skyrim.
Yeah.
On a false premise, because it's not going to be that game, and if they get roped into paying a monthly fee, it's going to be an expensive way of not playing that game.
Yeah, I mean, you can. That's also the weird thing. So, I played a little bit with some other people, and also played a little bit kind of by myself. You can totally play through the entire game's main storyline by yourself.
Right. Okay.
Which is kind of good, to a certain extent, from MMO. Like I said, very expensive, but it doesn't really play like Skyrim.
No.
It's very much an MMO. Enemies respawn quickly. They've got aggro. They've got very set guard patterns that they adhere to.
Okay.
So unlike the kind of more dynamic AI you got in Skyrim,
absolutely.
Stuff attacks you just like in an MMO.
Right. I think that's why I was giving you that look. Then I wasn't sure if you meant even compared to an MMO, these things are mindless, or it's just an MMO.
No, it's just an MMO.
It's
not mindless for an MMO. It's just
an MMO.
It's just an MMO, and it's not doing anything different to that.
Did you have hands on with it? Sorry.
Yes, about an hour.
Okay. And have you played many MMOs?
I've played. I had World of Warcraft for a couple months.
That's fine. You've got an idea. How does it vary that? I mean, is the combat different?
No.
Is there anything that you would say?
Just the fact it's got single player and more of a story to it.
It's got single player?
Well, no. So you can play the main quest as single player.
Right. So it's going back to Age of Conan.
Yeah, and it's about, the single player is kind of more what you'd expect from an Elder Scrolls game.
Right.
It's never a single player. It's never just the fact that it's easy enough to play on your own. So it's not saying go out and get 10 wolf pelts and come back to me.
Yeah.
And you can do this by yourself. It's a case of in the first hour, I had to defeat some skeletons who were guarding some stones to unlock a barrow, to then burn a necromancer's body who was trying to be brought back to life, investigate this cult that was trying to take over part of the island where you are, and then eventually you're evacuating the town as it gets taken over. So this is first hour, and this literally is like as you start as well. This was create a character and go. So this is the first hour of gameplay you'd get in the actual game. So pretty epic stuff compared to other MMOs in terms of what you're doing. So that's good, but if all you're interested in is other Elder Scrolls game, the fact that you're going to have to pay monthly means it can be a very expensive way of doing it.
Yeah, probably it's better off getting the expansions to Skyrim.
And that was the thing. As a result of having this kind of story-driven approach, it never felt like for any of those story missions like you needed anyone with you. It was definitely all doable by yourself.
Okay.
And therefore, when grouping up with people, it all felt a bit unnecessary. So I think you are potentially at risk of doing quite a lot of it by yourself, because if anyone's being a bit slow or not doing exactly what you want, there's no compulsion to stay with them and try and do your best together, because you can just bugger off and do it yourself.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's always a difficult balance. I'm not sure the team there really has. I don't know who the team is. I'm assuming it's Bethesda of old, and it's a hard market to jump into at this point. I mean, you are up against companies that have either been refining the same model for ages or who have been knocking out MMOs on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be public quest and stuff in there as well, which they weren't really on offer, not as far as I could see anyway, today. I kind of think if it was free to play, I would, even if you had to go out and buy the disc, I would probably do that, and I could play the single player, and it wouldn't probably be as good as Skyrim was, but it would still be some more Elder Scrolls, and that would still be fine. It does look very nice, very, 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 very nice looking game. But it's just that monthly subscription that's completely put me off it at the minute.
Fair enough. That makes sense.
The funny thing is maybe if some of the PvP stuff or PvE stuff where you're actually playing with other people had been really good and kind of very tactical, and it felt like you were on an epic Elder Scrolls adventure, then I might have been. I'd have been kind of excited for it at that point. Whereas instead, I kind of spent an hour playing Skyrim with bad combat.
Fair enough. Again, Skyrim's combat was never the greatest.
Yeah, but make that worse.
Yeah, exactly.
It starts to become less tolerable.
Right. So, what else we got? EA.
EA
is next, right?
Yeah, that's when we met back up.
Need for Speed. We have to stop calling it a Criterion Need for Speed game,
because it's not.
No, I don't mean this. I mean we have to stop saying about Criterion Need for Speed games, this is a Need for Speed game by Criterion, because now I feel like Need for Speed is what Criterion have made it.
Yes.
That game state felt like the Criterion Need for Speed games. The handling was a little different. It wasn't quite as arcadey, but the style of game, the way you boost, the way you power up, the way you enter missions felt.
I think it's worth probably being clear on this. I don't think it felt necessarily very much like Need for Speed Most Wanted, but I did feel like it very much felt like Need for Speed Hot Pursuit.
Do you mean felt in terms of the handling or in terms of the speeding around the world?
Well, in terms of everything. I think you have the kind of cop element in terms of players can take on cops. You've got the evasion techniques like EMPs and boosts coming back.
Yeah.
The way the world felt,
but the open world
and the handling were all quite similar.
Okay, the open world was Most Wanted styled.
I don't know. Most Wanted felt. I guess I spent so much time in the city. In Most Wanted, it felt very urban.
Whereas, an environment like that. But the way, I suppose,
Whereas Hot Pursuit felt quite a lot more rural.
Yes, fair enough. Absolutely. It was more that, but it feels like a combination of those two games. Not was it the Run that intersected those two?
Yes.
Yeah, it didn't feel like that.
No.
So this new team, Ghost, have clearly come along and been like, "Hey, we can do that. We like what Criterion have done, and they've done it." Feels like
the handling was tight. The gameplay felt good. It looked. We're playing PS4. Looked really, really nice. It was kind of lashing down with rain at the start of the race, and the effects there, and the kind of dribbling down the car, and the way it lit up the road was like porn.
The dribbling down the car was part of your fetishization of this. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I mean, I only played it for like 2 minutes, and then we moved on to FIFA. But don't think I need another Need for Speed game. But if I'm going to get a car game for a new system, it's certainly with a look.
Yeah, I mean, I, for whatever reason, have a real affinity for Need for Speed games. It's something I've never really got bored of, despite the fact that Call of Duty, for example, I still kind of play through them every year for the last X number of years, but at the same time, I always feel at risk of falling off the edge.
Right, I feel like racing games, a lot more is added just by adding tracks, more than almost any other.
Yes. I know what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
it's a new map.
Yeah.
You're still shooting, whereas
it changes the way you race.
It changes the way you race, and also just as an analog to real life, it's something like it's far more. And again, maybe this comes from a place where I just get on better with racing games than I do Call of Duty. But
yes,
as an allegory, as what you're doing, when you think about racing, you get excited about the track it's going to be on, and maybe how the cars have been souped up. Whereas if you think about war.
Well, interestingly, I think maybe those games are different enough each year to get around that, because, like I said, I felt for a number of years like I'm nearly falling off the edge with Call of Duty, and then we'll talk about it in a minute, but I feel like Titanfall took a very Call of Duty-like experience in terms of the points, the levelling up, the pace, the style of shooting, the number of hits you can take before you die, and completely transformed the way you do it.
Well, we'll get to that in a moment. Because first we've got to talk about FIFA.
Yeah.
I'm going to crush this natural progression of conversation and make us talk about FIFA.
That is the order we did it in.
Yeah.
We had a lovely game of FIFA on the Xbox One.
People hate us. Everybody wanted to be in front of our video camera.
They all wanted to be on Playdevil.
They did. All of them wanted to be on Playdevil. Apart from the ones who didn't went, ah! When we told them.
Yeah. And, one guy especially wanted to be on it because he went in front of the camera 3 times in about 20 seconds.
Yeah. If I hadn't had my hands full. There are two, I mean, I was awful, I didn't score, but we have 2 particularly good moments that I think we'll see. One of is you getting very, very excited, pumping the air, like full on, and it was offside. And when you turn back, it was just like, no, it's a goal kick.
And I've been doing that for some considerable time. I think, past the replay of it being offside as well.
But part of the reason for that is because I hadn't been looking at the screen, so even the offside was taken while I was telling people to get out of the way of the filming. It was like, really, that's what you're celebrating?
Yeah, so I don't even know how much of that we'll be able to show on camera, because it might just be someone's ass in front of the camera.
I'll make sure there's space, don't worry. If I have to go through that person's camera. And then the other side.
And then right at the end, just before injury time, I did actually genuinely score.
Letting out a whelp of joy and surprise.
That I think had most of the EA press booth looking at me. Oops. It was a little bit embarrassing.
It was great. It's FIFA. Can we just move on?
It looks nice. And actually the kind of, like the pitch side stuff, having like ball boys and stuff.
Yeah, something I can't speak to what it's like the rest of the time, but there was weird stuff like that. Another ball came on, we were both sitting there like going, what the fuck? And then somebody came over and just tapped one down, cleared it off the pitch.
It's been a few years since I've invested any serious amount of time in a FIFA game. So, I think fair enough, you're getting it in the box if you're an Xbox One owner, and it looks solid. Difficult to comment yet about the amount of content you're getting with it, but it looked like it was going to be, they're saying it's going to be, I think, pretty much like-for-like version.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be FIFA looking really good. I mean, the animation was fantastic.
Yeah.
If you're looking at a game that probably simply up in the textures is going to make a huge difference.
Also, what seems much more impressive compared to other versions of the game that have been on Xbox, although probably a dev kit in the background or something, the loading times were great.
Oh yeah, that stormed through that, and it was like, okay, that's maybe it is a good thing to put it all on the 500 gig hard drive.
Yeah,
let's make it solid state next. Let's really nail this thing.
Yeah,
it was good. Titanfall. That was pretty good.
Pretty good.
Titanfall. I'm not a big, as probably told by this point, not really my kind of thing in terms of some of it, but I do like big mechs and I do like parkour.
I mean, that's the thing. At this point, like I think I've not even alluded to, been definitely saying that kind of fast-paced multiplayer shooter, over the last few days I've been saying I don't think I play them for long enough to get good at them, and therefore I can't really like them that much, because it is depressing getting beaten all of the time. Titanfall was something kind of special, though. You can run and jump just about anywhere on the level. There's a huge amount of verticality.
I mean, if you run up against a wall, you can literally just propel yourself up it, because you double jump, you wall run, and off a single tap of the wall, you can double jump again. You can just propel yourself and there's no fall damage. You just
Yeah.
You are constantly moving.
I was amazed that no one's really just had the idea of saying there's no real limits on this before, because as long as you, like you said, as long as you hit something, you can just keep on mashing A or holding it down if you want to run down something, and you just go. And also, the way it's done in terms of just controlling the camera, you can jump across to something and then start wall running perpendicular to it just by aligning the camera to the side of the wall as you arrive, and off you go.
Yeah, it was simple. I mean, I was getting hosed by this guy called Echo. It was the guy that kept just killing me. I got him once. But it was fast. The Titans and the way that everyone can have them. They empower you, but they're not invulnerable. If somebody gets close enough to you, there's nothing you yourself can do about getting them off other than ejecting yourself.
Yeah.
You have to leave it to another team member to help get them off. It's a bit like an elephant being attacked by a coyote or something. Like, it's just on there, it's this tiny thing that doesn't really hurt it, but you rip off like a chunk on the top and you just start unloading clip after clip after clip into it.
Yeah.
And every character does also have like anti-tank weaponry that just...
And actually some of that was quite powerful. I got quite a lot of kills using that.
Which character class were you?
I started off as the tactical one, which has got like a homing pistol, but realised...
Found out that didn't work.
Well, I was trying the verticality too much, so I was on top of buildings and it had quite short range on it, so I moved to the assault class to get a bit more range and assault with an assault rifle. And that had some kind of multi-grenade launcher as an side thing. And the Titans, being a bit heavier and more difficult to manoeuvre, if you're on top of a building with that, you can jank them up like nothing else.
Yeah, and you've got, if you've got three members of another team coming at you from both sides and very easily in seconds from above you, all the weapons can take you out, and only one of them has to get to you to start ripping you open. Yeah. Like a can of sardines. Yeah. It works really well. Yeah,
it felt nicely balanced.
I've been sceptical about it for a while, and I think maybe unjustly.
Yeah, the one thing we didn't really see is how they're going to introduce these single-player style elements to it to keep it fresh.
Single-player style?
Yeah, but I mean, it's supposed to...
Campaign multiplayer, I think.
Yes, they could describe it as campaign multiplayer, so that's the thing. There's no traditional single-player with it, so they need to try and keep it fresh for longer for the kind of person, I think, like me, that would normally play a campaign and then play 5 or 10 hours of multiplayer and get rid of it.
Yeah.
So being that person, I don't want it to only last me for 5 or 10 hours and not have a kind of 5 to 10 hour single player on top of it, because otherwise that's kind of halving the value.
Absolutely.
So I think amongst all people who are interested in it, I am particularly concerned about what they're going to be doing with that stuff, and that's still TBC.
It is. Then we went to Activision. You saw Destiny again. It was the same, wasn't it?
It was the same video, but there was that was really disappointing, but then there was a really interesting Q&A afterwards, where they, I think...
It's going to be free!
No, yeah, that'd be good.
Just announce it, they have to do it now that we've said it. That's how it works, right?
They let loose quite a few little snippets, which I think probably went further than PR people would have probably wanted them to do had they been in the room. So I've not heard any other site announce this, so maybe this is going to be some exclusive news for all our listeners.
Just hope somebody listens to this thing.
Yeah.
Man.
So you're going to have your own personal ship to go between the planets which are available: Venus, Saturn, Earth, and Mars, I think.
Sounds right.
You can customise it. There's various places to show it off. I think they've kind of announced that there might have been a ship before. That seemed to be something that they'd been saying, at least since Gamescom started.
Right.
So that immediately piqued my interest, and then
They said specifically that's why everyone gets their own ship, I think was the wording they used in the interview that sparked your line of questioning.
Yes. And I think in hindsight that kind of made sense, because in the videos you get to see people drop in via a ship to help you out in multiplayer and drop into the campaign, etc. In a more natural feeling way. But I wasn't thinking about that, and I immediately thought, well, if they're giving you a ship, what's the point in doing that? Let you pimp it out if not going to let you fly it. And also, as we were discussing over dinner, these are the guys behind Halo Reach, which also had ship-to-ship combat in a first-person shooter.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I obviously asked the question, is there therefore going to be ship-to-ship combat either against other players or against enemy AI? To which the answer was, we've got nothing else to say yet.
Yes.
So that means yes.
Yeah.
That's not even a no comment. That's not even we're only talking about this at the minute, which at least gives them some wriggle room.
Yeah.
That is basically announcing it without literally announcing it.
Well, that's big if it's there. I mean, it's taking Destiny to possibly opening up the whole new areas, whole new gameplay types, whole new possibilities.
And they've not announced player counts yet, but I mean, potentially if that was big, I mean, you're taking people into kind of almost, given the scale of it, and if you can literally fly between all those systems, that's a lot of space. You're almost opening it into kind of Eve-esque possibilities.
It's going to be.
It's never going to be that many people.
No, I was thinking more. I didn't even think that. I just think you're going to have the kind of fly zone around the planet before you kick in some kind of hyperspeed. And once you're in hyperspace, I bet there's not going to be any.
No, I think you're probably right. I mean, this is all still TBC as to how you get there. But I think it's never going to. It's never really going to be Eve. But it might be say more like X or Wing Commander style kind of thing, where in system there are a variety of things happening in space, and that'd be really cool if they added that in, because it already looks pretty great in terms of what they're showing off.
Fantastic. Let's move through the last two. I saw Skylanders. It's more Skylanders. You can rip some of them apart and put them back together to make new ones. Swap force characters. There's going to be 16 of those. Interestingly, the one thing that they said that I thought was most revealing, possibly, is that somebody somewhere has misinformed me, which was either in the Giants game they could have given the old toys new abilities, but they'd chosen not to, probably sell more toys, or they were wrong about the fact that when you hit the new level cap, you get new abilities with old characters. I'd be tempted to say they were wrong today because they seem pretty unsure. I suspect you hit... Basically, the XP goes up, your power, your health goes up, but each generation previously has been locked to a top-class skill, which was lower.
I guess they've had multiple studios working on it now as well.
Exactly, so who knows what work will be there. Let's hope. I mean, it'd be good if, really, by having the old toys, you have as many options.
And then I saw War Thunder, which was by Gaijin Games, who have made Birds of Steel and Il to Sturmovik on consoles.
Birds of Steel.
Very about as hardcore as a flight simulator can get on a console. This is, however, not really what I was expecting. It's a free-to-play game, which is going to be on PC and PS4.
Nice.
Cross-platform play, though.
Interesting.
And also free-to-play on PS4. And it even doesn't require PS Plus because it's a free title.
Okay, yeah. You will on PS4 anyway to play online.
No, so to play online, you won't need PS Plus.
But you need PS Plus to play online now.
So apparently not for free-to-play titles.
Really?
Yeah. This is what the producer was telling me. So
that's fascinating. I mean, it makes sense as well because I suppose as a free-to-play title, people would be like, we want to get as many people on to generate revenue as possible.
So that's a really interesting concept.
Yeah, it's a great workaround. Like if, for example, if Final Fantasy XIV, by paying a monthly subscription, you circumnavigate that, it could be a really good out for a lot of people.
Yeah, who want to play online but don't necessarily want to get PS Plus.
Yeah, like maybe Sony, because of course, if they're selling everything through the Sony store, Sony gets to cut off everything that's sold.
Yeah. So
they're going, okay, makes sense.
But this time, there's not any planes, which is 300 of them.
Right.
Which is many. But it's also versus tanks and versus ships as well.
I feel like tanks probably have the advantage.
It seemed to be the impression you would be able to do all three at the same time.
What?
Well, not literally. Yeah, sorry. In the way you would choose a class
Right,
in a shooter, you would say, I'm going to be a tank this time after you die. So it's not a case of you have to play an entire match as a plane.
Right, yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that was a brilliant idea I was having in my head.
Yeah, not worded particularly well there. Apologies. And it looked fairly manic because it's 16 versus 16. And they add in bots as well to try and make it more realistic. There's no ships in there at the minute. It's going to launch with planes and some tanks. And it's going to grow over time.
And then they're going to launch the ships later.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's not the game I was expecting to see. A little bit more arcadey.
Is this their answer to World of Tanks?
Seemed like it. Just all of the world of whatever's
going to be hard
mashed together.
War games to. I doubt war games will be toppled by them. But,
no, very small kind of Eastern European developer.
But having the PlayStation could be a bit of a coup for them if they're up against World of Tanks. If that's their equivalent.
Sony have clearly got a lot of faith in it. I mean, they were on part of their presentation and launching, on PS4 on the launch day. So just there, available free to play straight away.
Brilliant.
Absolutely so effectively, you are getting a free game in the box. They didn't really say what you'd be paying for. Apart from saying it was, the usual of what developers do now, saying it's free to play, not pay to win, and whatever. Blah, blah, blah.
We're definitely going to avoid pay to win.
Yeah, it seems totally competent and fine. And to be honest, if I do get a PlayStation 4, you might as well download it unless it's colossal. And
absolutely. I don't think there's ever a reason not to go free. Right, that is the end of Gamescom.
Yeah,
I'm exhausted. Don't mind saying it. I've been yawning most of the way through the podcast. Let's go drinking.
I'm impressed as well. We've done this in an hour.
That was the aim. I've been moving this on at a bit of a clip. Okay, Ron, thank you very much. This is our Gamescom coverage ended in terms of the podcast stuff. We have got quite a few videos to go up, mostly Nintendo stuff, but we do have some Hotline Miami, Episode 51 interview, which is amazing. Tune in for that. Anything else? FIFA, Need for Speed.
Yeah.
I feel like there was something else.
Yeah, we weren't allowed to do Titanfall, unfortunately.
No. Maybe that was it.
That's probably it for today.
Yeah.
If there was anything else yesterday. But
not much,
no.
So keep an eye on that, and that'll be on the YouTube channel, which is Playdevil TV.
Yeah.
Just a bit of an odd one. You might be watching. These podcasts are also there, so you might well already be there. And thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Hope it was enlightening and insightful.
It has been for me.
It has been for you. It hasn't been for me. It has been for me on mine.
Thank you for your time.
We will be back in about 2 weeks. Maybe less.
Maybe less. I imagine there'll be plenty to talk about. We are...
Games.
There are games. But on top of all this writing we're going to have to do, we are in the unfortunate situation where we are now both also expecting games to be lying on our doormats when we get home.
Yeah. Oh well. That's great. It's great news. I just haven't got much time.
Yeah, Christmas has started. Games are coming out again.
Here they come, guys.
Heads down, eyes down. A torrent of games. Although I'm not going to torrent any games. Terrible choice of wording.
Yeah.
A flood.
Thanks everyone. Bye before we get ourselves in more trouble.
See you later.